Jim Acosta.
Hi, Molly. Good to see you.
Good to see you. We have to start by talking about Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn
Yes.
and his assessment of Donald Trump. Basically, my man says there's nothing we could do to rein in the president of his own party.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, you could have voted against Todd Blanche. You could have done that, but you didn't do that. And we never really thought you were going to do that. For all the people out there who held out hope for John Cornyn and a profile in courage, yeah, this is the tiniest violin playing for you, whatever that expression is. No, I think that, it doesn't get more pathetic these days than Republican senators twisting themselves into pretzels, trying to simultaneously look like their own human being with their own souls still in their bodies, while also bowing down to Donald Trump every chance that they get. It is one of life's great mysteries, and they're all going to go in the Hall of Shame years from now. We're all going to look back at these clips and say, yes, you could have done something. There were things you could have done to rein in Donald Trump, and you just never did any of them because you're a coward. You're an absolute fucking coward. And, how many of those Republican senators are there in the Senate? Pretty much all of them at this point. There are no Mitt Romneys. There are no John McCains. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio, et cetera, et cetera?
There are no Mitt Romneys, there are no John McCains, but there are Max Millers. There are Max Millers and Bernie Morenos. And Bernie Moreno, Republican senator from Ohio, he won the Sherrod Brown seat, which Sherrod may actually win back this cycle.
Right.
Sherrod Brown, champion of workers' rights. Bernie Moreno, champion of car dealerships.
Right.
But he also is perhaps on the right side of what has become one of the most, I think, upsetting. I mean, when I read about the daughter today, divorces going, Max Miller, an Ohio congressman, he was married to Bernie Moreno's daughter, and this has devolved into a lot of public fighting. But basically, the allegations are that Max Miller was violent with the wife, was violent with the child, harassed her, just every bad thing you could think of.
Exactly. And oh, by the way, I mean, yes, and we should say all allegations, but oh, by the way, Max Miller has faced these allegations before. The former White House press secretary, Stephanie Grisham, under Trump 1.0, has made similar allegations. And, we're at the point where people like Eric Swalwell and Graham Plattner would have already been booted out of politics, and they would already be gone, and we would already have had several news cycles since those departures. But we're still waiting for Max Miller to leave the scene, and he's hanging on by his fingernails. And apparently Donald Trump himself has told him it's not looking good for you, despite the fact that he went in front of the cameras and said, I still kind of like this guy, because Donald Trump always stands with the accused and not the accuser.
But why? But why?
Please, why is that? Gosh. Golly.
It is. Yeah. It's also a case of these are people who have abandoned the moral high ground, right? Donald Trump has multiple allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse, multiple allegations. He has been adjudicated by E. Jean Carroll and had to pay her $5 million. So this is not like a controversy. These are truths that Republican voters have decided do not matter to them. And so when Donald Trump goes to Max Miller, he says the only thing that he can say, being that he is so abandoned the moral high ground, he says, your polling is bad and you may not be able to win.
That's right. And that's all they care about. And really at this point, I mean, do they really expect to hang on to the House of Representatives? I guess if you're, inside Donald Trump's brain, which is a scary place, and he's thinking, well, if I cheat just enough to hang on to the House of Representatives, then maybe this one seat does matter. This is a very disturbing picture that we're painting here. But I mean, Max Miller he should no longer be in the House of Representatives. But the only reason why he's in this position right now, where he's about to be shoved out, is because he's becoming a political liability.
Yeah.
Because because
Yeah.
it may damage the rest of the party, and they don't want that kind of a guy on the ballot. When I guess especially in a place like Ohio, where Sherrod Brown is going to be on the ballot, the
And Amy
governor's
Acton.
race in Amy Acton, Vivek Ramaswamy is not looking that hot in terms of,
Yeah.
and so to see Democrats winning statewide office in Ohio. When is the last time we saw that? That's been a very long time. It's been many moons since that occurred, and so I can certainly see why they're trying to push Max Miller to the side. But my goodness, think about how long it's taking them to do that, and contrast that with where Democrats have been for the last year and a half.
I also want to add, because I think it's important, the only reason we're hearing about these allegations, the only reason they're being taken so seriously, is because
Yeah.
there's an affluent woman who is the daughter of a powerful man.
Yes.
I mean, Stephanie Grisham worked in the Trump White House, and she barely could get these allegations out. They ended up
Exactly.
both signing NDAs, and there was some kind of something happened there that we don't really know. But
Yep.
it's really important point. It is very hard for women to come forward. It is very hard for these things to be taken seriously. And what Max Miller is doing is he's engaging in a lot of the things that we see when women come forward. He said, well, I cooked her dinner. She let me cook her
Yeah.
dinner. She wouldn't have let me do that had I abused her. Like, these are textbook.
Exactly. Right. And where is Bernie Moreno on this? I mean, he's now finally starting to say something about this congressman who's been allegedly abusive towards his daughter. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, are you kidding me? Like, it's taken you this long to say this? Did you have to get permission to say this? It's rather pathetic. And, he had saltier language for Dr. Fauci at a fucking congressional hearing than he is for his own son-in-law, who has been allegedly extremely abusive towards not only your daughter, but your granddaughter. Like, dude, I mean, where is your soul?
And-
How does this make you a man? I mean, honestly, dude, like, so please go stand in front of the mirror and do some deep thinking. My goodness.
And Moreno did not come forward until after Donald Trump said it was okay. Because
yeah.
Donald
That's
Trump,
what you
he
do.
doesn't come forward until Donald Trump calls Max Miller, which is a really good example of why this is still very much the party of Donald Trump. The other Ohio Senator, John Hustad, has not.
Yeah, I saw there's a clip of him sounding very pathetic about this.
Yeah.
And they're all waiting for the dear leader to give them the nod. When the dear leader gives them the nod, then they can act like human beings again. And it's really kind of astonishing. And you would think that we never reached the bottom, and there is no worst with Donald Trump, as Barry Trump likes to say. But my God, I mean, when it comes to allegations of domestic violence of this nature, and people still can't find their souls and be actual human beings, I mean, we must be in Washington. We're not in Kansas anymore.
I'm going to read you just a little reporting of what Bernie Moreno said to reporters. This girl is crying at night because she can't sleep without her little blue bunny. And his answer is, I'm just not going to give it to you. So finally, yesterday, he lets the blue bunny go to the girl. This is completely depraved. But he doesn't come out and tell this story until the day after Donald Trump calls Max Miller.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's like a fatal attraction quality to this, with Max Miller. This guy, just seems to me to be, one of the, not exhibit A, but exhibit, I don't know, V of men from MAGA operating with two sets of rules in American society. And if this had been a Democrat, this person he would already be gone.
Yeah.
But because they all work for Donald Trump, they have to wait for Don Corleone to give them the nod, and it's absolutely disgraceful. And I don't know how. I'm a father. I have a daughter. I don't know what it is with Bernie Moreno right now. Like, dude, if this were my son-in-law, I think the Senate is not that far away from the House. They would have to get that. They would have to get
Yeah.
Max Miller around the clock protection if he
Yeah.
were my son-in-law.
And it is, but it does show very much that Trump still controls the party, which
Yeah.
speaks to this idea when we look at John Cornyn saying he can't do anything. Part of it is that these Republicans in Congress have given up their power. Part of
Yes.
it is that these Republicans in Congress don't really want to have the power to stop him.
No, it's almost as though they've forgotten how to act like human beings. They've forgotten, what it's like to operate with a functioning spine.
Yeah.
And the party is the party is Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is the party. I think that you could talk about the Michigan Senate race, where these numbers break down. Larry Sabato was pointing out just the other day that, not only is the House really gone for the Republicans, the Senate is in play too. And the
Hmm.
Senate is in play whether or not, whatever happens in Michigan, the Senate is still in play for the Democrats. And, when we're talking about Sherrod Brown returning to the Senate, I mean, we're just seeing like the little tip of the top of the tidal wave that is coming. And why for the life of me they're not having more serious conversations inside the Republican Party about this. I saw another story that said that Donald Trump has been admitting to Republicans that things aren't looking good right now. No kidding.
Yeah.
Really? You think that's the case when you're painting gilded horses or whatever it is in
Yeah.
Washington near the Lincoln Memorial in your failed reflecting pool project while everybody else is getting the shaft? Yeah, things might be a little bleak right now, politically speaking.
It is also pretty incredible to look at this moment and to see, like, Trump still is truthing that his polls are good. So, right, he
Yeah.
said, I saw the real polls and they're good. So I
Yeah.
guess he's seeing MAGA Republicans in Alabama still support him. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think it's worth, like, Trump continues to have this unreality problem, which is
Yes.
pretty striking. So, yesterday, Judge Box of Wine, Jeanine Pirro, is called in. Donald Trump is mad about the reflecting pool. Judge
Yeah.
Jeanine she can only do what she can do with reality.
It's true. No, and listen, I mean, this takes us back to sort of the post January 6 days when there was this distinction between what the Trump people could say in front of the cameras on TV and on cable
Right.
networks and lie about the election. But when they go into court, they can't lie as much because
Right.
there would be consequences legally for themselves,
Right.
potentially losing their law licenses and so on. And I think Judge Jeanine Pirro said, I'd rather have my box of wine and my law license as opposed to just my box of wine. I think maybe that's what happened there. But the other thing too, Molly, and I don't know, I've just started to think about this. You know how you and I and many others have had this, conversation about there's Earth 1 and then there's Earth
Right.
2.
Right.
And Earth
Right.
1 is the normal Earth, and Earth 2 is the Donald Trump Earth where lies are truth and truth are lies. I wonder now if there's an Earth 3. And Earth 3 is we don't know what the fuck to do as a country with a president who is in such cognitive decline that he can't really formulate a sentence, an intelligent sentence anymore. It's that capacity is gone now. And just yesterday in the Oval Office, he was going from one thing to the next
Right.
on a rant, and he couldn't say 86-47. So he was saying things like 87. And so he just like so I don't know. I almost feel like we've been moved from Earth 2 to Earth 3.
Yeah.
And as a country, we don't know what to do about that. I think many of us know what to do about it. But we have a Republican Party that simply won't do it. We have the John
Right.
Cornyn Republican Party.
Right. And I also
Yeah.
think, look, there was a lot of reporting on the state of Joe Biden, 81-year-old Joe Biden, that he was not sharp, and then there was that unbelievably bad debate performance. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. He decided not to run again. The polls showed he wasn't going to win.
Yeah.
All right. Donald Trump, 80 years old, making decisions that Joe Biden, even on his worst day, would never dream of making, right? Like numerous foreign wars. Imagine, still talking about Greenland and how he's going
Right.
to go for Greenland. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
kind of stuff that any other president, even if it were someone who was sharp as a tack, would be in a lot of trouble for.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just write one book about this. It would have to be many books. It would have to be like a trilogy at this point of Donald Trump, going off the deep end. And to me, I just think that Joe Biden was one thing. Donald Trump is having one of these episodes where he's basically saying we killed Medicare. He's doing that just about every day
Right,
now,
right,
and he's
right,
almost
right,
doing it multiple times a day. And in
right.
the way, and this is what I mean about Earth 3, and the way that he's worn us down over the years with truth being lies and lies being truth and so on. And people feel like that's one fire hose, the fire hose of
Right,
lies. Now we're getting the fire hose of dementia.
right.
And we don't know what to do with the fire hose of dementia. And that's a horse of a different feather. And I don't know, until, I mean, he thinks that he can win the Iran war in the way that he wins his golf tournaments at Bedminster, where the caddy
Well,
dumps the little ball out of his pocket.
he just
This
won.
is
Didn't he just win his 34th or some
he
crazy
just won.
number?
He did.
Right.
I know. And it reminds me of Bill Murray in Caddyshack, Cinderella story, coming out of nowhere, the groundskeeper, hits the golf
Yeah.
ball. And there it is. It's a miracle. He won.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm not doing the line right. But no, but I think that, he's wishing that the caddy, that Pete Hegseth would dump a golf ball out of his pocket. So some way
Yeah,
he could win the war in Iran. And there
yeah.
have been stories like they're looking for ideas. They're looking for new thinking outside the box ideas on how to win the war in Iran. And apparently Reuters was reporting that we've depleted our missile capacity, much of our long range missile capacity or something along those lines. And I mean, this is a fuck up. This is a big old, industrial sized, Donald Trump sized fuck up
Who
of
could
immense
have
proportions.
who could have seen that the man who bankrupted all the casinos would be just so terrible at being president?
Yeah.
Even though the last time he was president, he killed lots of his supporters by
Yeah, he
telling
should
them
not
not
be.
to wear masks.
And I think that's why he's been focused on like building a helipad and putting new grass in at the White House and changing the columns and things like that. Maybe it's dawned on him he's also bad at the big things. Like maybe running a
Yes.
pandemic is just not his thing,
Well,
and
and
maybe
Maggie
winning a war is just not his thing.
and Maggie
Um,
Haberman said that when she was in the White House, all he was interested in was the real estate.
and that's it. But he's not even good at that. He's
Yeah,
not. He's basically. And Molly, you know this, being a New Yorker, he's good at slapping his name on shit.
yeah,
He's good at marketing things to people that have disposable amounts of money and not so disposable amounts of money, as it turns out in many cases, like crypto.
yeah.
But that his specialty has always been being a shyster and being a guy who pulls a fast one, and that just ain't good enough. And why we're learning this lesson all over again a second time around, I have no idea. But we're getting that in addition to somebody who is really in the sunset, in the twilight of his
Yeah. Yeah.
Twilight Zone days, it seems to be.
Yes. In the twilight of his Twilight Zone days, Jim Acosta.
There you go.